Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Castro, and I'm a proud alumna and staff member in UNC's Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you all for joining us today for the Alumni Career Panel, Alumni in Creative Careers. Today, we will learn from and connect with fellow UNC Bears working in this industry. First, this event will be recorded and available on demand a week after this event on the alumni website. I will post the link in the chat. And two, I invite you all to start building your network and reach out to our panelists after the event. I will also post your contact information in the chat towards the end of this virtual event. As we highlight the careers of these alumni, I invite students, fellow staff, and faculty to ask questions via the Q&A feature. Now, please help me welcome our panelists. Panelists, please introduce yourself by stating your name, pronouns, title, the organization you work for, your UNC degree, and a little bit about yourself. And Adele, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Annadelle Blassingame. I use they, she pronouns, and I graduated in 2023 and 2025 from UNC. My current role, I work as a tattoo artist at True Studio Tattoo and Piercing in Greeley. Yeah, and I think that's all that I needed to tell, but yeah.
Thank you, Annadelle. And Karen, how about we go to you next?
Hi, my name is Karen. I use she, her pronouns, and I currently reside in New York City, where I am a freelance musician and web designer, social media manager. I also work at Brooklyn Youth Chorus as a program assistant and Jazz at Lincoln Center as a front of house supervisor and a Weebop assistant, which is an education program that we have at the organization that caters to babies 8 months old up until they're 7 years old for jazz education.
That's awesome. Thank you, Karen. And Tito, how about you go?
Hi everyone, my name is Maurilio Tapia. As you hear, I also go by Tito, um, just a name that I've always grown up with. I use he, him, él pronouns. I graduated from UNC class of 2018 with degrees in both visual communication and art history. Visual communication is basically graphic design. So I use that graphic design now to work as a social media manager for Front Range Community College. But aside from that, I also work as a visual artist. Eh, I'm currently the artist in residency for the Santa Fe Art District downtown Denver. So I have my own studio space there. Feel free to stop by and visit with me if you're ever in the area.
Thank you, Tito. And Cheryl, why don't you close this out?
Hello, I'm Cheryl Six. I'm actually a 1977 graduate of UNC, and my degree was in flute performance. I spent 30 years at playing the piccolo in the U.S. Coast Guard Band and 36 years performing in the Eastern Connecticut Symphony Orchestra, 30 some years teaching flute lessons. After retirement, I received a degree in holistic thinking and another master's degree in integrative health and healing. I'm also a certified hypnotherapist, a justice of the peace, and numerous other things. But I'm currently retired. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And we can jump right into the Q&A portion of this event. So how did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current role? And we'll go in that same order. Annabelle.
So, I forgot to say what I graduated with, but when I came to UNC, I did my undergraduate degree in art and design with an emphasis in printmaking, and I also had an anthropology minor, and I think a lot of that helped to build up my how I like perceive the world through an art lens and how I could translate that to my art. And specifically with tattooing, I was invited to an art gallery that someone was a UNC alum who was running it and opening it, and they were interested in my tattoo work. So that helped me to get more into the tattoo space. And yeah.
Thank you, Annabelle. Karen.
I also forgot to say what I went to school for. I swear I am supposed to be here. Um, I went to UNC as a for a Bachelor of Music in Jazz Studies, Music Business. I did start as a performance major, but then switched my major to music business, which I think is important to say because my most influential class at UNC was the arts entrepreneurship class with Professor Randall Harmon, who is still there. And he said something in class one day that really sticks to me to this day, and that was marry the thing that you want to do and treat it like your partner. So for me, at that time, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do, so I don't know what I want to commit to. And that class opened me up to possibilities outside of UNC and Colorado in general, because fell into I fell victim to comparison, and I felt like I was behind the entire time I was at UNC. I was not at the same level as my classmates, and I just didn't feel like I had a future in music. But then I realized that there is not really one pathway to whatever it is that you want to do. And you don't have to do it the same way other people are doing it. I think later we'll talk about like industry standards and stuff. I think like those things should are not fixed. And so that class really helped me open my mind to other possibilities and helped me realize that I could create my own path. And that's what led me to go to New York for my master's in arts entrepreneurship. So yeah, that's how UNC helped me, and I always talk about it every single time.
And sometimes it's those small conversations you're having with professors that
Mhm.
lead to have the biggest impact. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that, Karen. Tito.
There you go. Yeah, so UNC has helped me a lot, honestly. I mentioned that I graduated with 2 degrees, and that was very purposeful. My visual communication degree was something that I knew was going to be very helpful in terms of practical skills. The visual communication it really helps me out with the presentation of how I present myself, presentation with my portfolio, my social media presence, my online presence, resumes. And just to have that skill set is really helpful when it comes to job searching and just working with other entities in the future. And art history is such a game changer for me. It's really opened my eyes into how the art world is and how it has been historically. Just having studied art history, I knew that um, art can be very historical and very documentary. So I wanted to really be a part of that, really wanted to show and express my culture, considering that art can be very Eurocentric at times. I'm come from a Mexican American background. I'm Mexican, so I really wanted to, express my culture and express that in spaces that historically are, left out. So I really felt that having that background and that knowledge in art history really shaped me into who I want to be and how I want to move forward with my art. So
Love that. I think that can be very powerful. Thank you, Tito. And Cheryl.
Well, I would say UNC helped me in a number of ways to push me towards a performing career. And the key word is belief, I think. My parents were jazz and nightclub musicians in the Denver area. And so my dad taught me originally on the flute, but he was really a saxophone player. And so some of that doesn't really truly translate to flute. So I never really had any private instruction in high school. So when I decided I would pursue music, and of course, as a music student, you have to audition, I did not pass an audition at UNC. I was not accepted. Um, I decided to try to go to the orientation and be a music minor. And I was spending a lot of time that day trying to get a schedule put together. And I think I was the last student in the room. And finally, the professor saw my academic record, saw that I aced music theory in high school, and he said, "We're going to let you in on probation." So I had never had a music lesson before except from my dad. And so my first instruction, I improved dramatically and quickly. The belief and that I should be there materialized from all around. 2 years into the degree, I applied to be a performance major and moved from education to performance. And again, the belief was there, and I was able to do that. Um, I found out about a performing opening in the United States Coast Guard Band from a fellow alum. And I would have had to fly to Connecticut to audition, but the band happened to be on tour, concert tour through the Denver area. So I was able to audition in Denver, but I didn't own a piccolo. And so graduation was over. I was no longer a student, but the school believed in me and allowed me to use the piccolo way past graduation. And I won that nationwide audition. And that began my 30-year career in one of our country's five premier military bands.
That's a good story, Cheryl. Thank you. Alrighty, next question. So, creativity often reflects personal identity. And Tito, I think you were talking a little bit about this. So, how do your lived experiences, culture, and background show up in your art or in your creative work? And Karen, how about you kick us off?
So, this also, I feel, starts off with my experience at UNC, because I feel like in academia, jazz programs are very white. I don't know how to say this, but there's just like the population is predominantly white students and faculty, which is surprising because the music is Black American music, which I think academia kind of whitewashed it a little bit. So on top of being a Latina woman in a predominantly white male program, there was many times where I felt out of place, especially as a singer, because singers tend to get hated on a little bit more in the jazz world, because we're not considered as smart or as skilled in the profession. So I had a lot of soul searching to do in that regard, while in school, trying to figure out what my place was. Um, it wasn't until I expanded my reach and moved away from Colorado and experienced the jazz scene in New York City that I understood more of how I fit into the mix, which then obviously that conversation then goes back, to my classmates that I was with. I still talk to people like on Instagram and we talk about these things um, daily. And I think the thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to gain more awareness of the music, how we fit into the music, how, yes, in academia, it's this way, but we need to find ways to make it more inclusive and more diverse. Um, so how I try to show up in spaces is by being myself, first of all, because my identity matters in the space, but also studying the history of the music and where it comes from, and making sure that people don't forget that because it is Black American music and we are telling stories that aren't necessarily ours when we do the music. So we have to figure out, okay, how did this originate and how do we carry it forward? Um, and that work did start at UNC because, you notice it and the teachers even talked about it. So, um, just continuing the awareness and making sure that we are including people who aren't normally invited to create the music.
I definitely agree with you and being thoughtful in that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Tito.
Yeah, I'm kind of really aligned with what Karen said in terms of studying, past artists and past different influences that kind of inspire you to create in the current day. One of my favorite quotes that I'm not sure if he directly said it, but it's from the Clifford Still Museum, which basically says, just creativity no longer bound by fear. That really stuck with me because as a Mexican American artist, it's really hard to express yourself, especially with different climates in the world and just different situations that are happening sociologically. I think it's very important for you to just be unafraid to express yourself and unafraid to express your identity. Um, I really take into inspiration a lot from past artists, more specifically in the expressionist era within the 80s. So I like to look at into artists that were in working in New York. So Basquiat, Keith Haring, all of those artists, especially the graffiti art, is really inspiring to me because it's really aligned with just self-expression to its fullest extent and just being really upfront and in your face about who you are, your identity, and your background. And I really am drawn to that, and I really love to, reflect that within my own work as well. And yeah, that's why I really do appreciate the art history side of my studies, and thankful for all the professors at UNC who have taught various and wonderful classes that I was able to just draw upon and build my own foundation of what art is and what art means to not only myself but to others who perceive it as well.
You're making me want to take a class.
Totally, you should. It changes your life entirely. I swear.
No, I believe you. I believe you. What about you, Cheryl?
I guess first of all, I would like to say one word or so about being a classically trained symphonic musician and the word creativity. When you're sitting on a stage with 80 other fine musicians and you have one person on the podium, and of course, the composer wrote the music, the conductor's telling you how to play the music, it's hard to see how creativity can be in there unless you're a soloist. Um, but I think problem solving is another way of being creative. How do I play the high F sharp softly and in tune? That takes creativity. So I just want to say that aspect. As far as my background, my parents were nightclub musicians. They discouraged me from going into the music business. Clearly, a difficult life for them, but I pursued that. They also discouraged me from moving from education to performance and nothing to fall back on. Uh, you're a teenager. You don't want to fall back. You're moving forward. So I didn't listen to that either, but boy, were they happy when I got a full-time job with full benefits and a retirement. And I'm not saying I showed them, I'm saying you never know. So even though my parents were musicians, they discouraged that as a career. I have a son who went to New England Conservatory. I never discouraged him, but he is finding out what it's like to be a freelance musician. And then during COVID, he went back to school, got his education degree. Um, so he has a day job and tenure. Yay. Thank
No, I appreciate you speaking to that, Cheryl. I think students listening in who are looking to go into that specific industry is important for them to know. And Adele.
So, a lot of this also goes back into my undergraduate degree. And while I was studying, a lot of the work that I was creating was about my own life and the experiences that I held, just because I wanted to break those things down a little more and understand them, because I really didn't give myself time to process those things before. So through art, I was able to do that. And I'm very thankful that I had a very supportive teacher, Andrew Meyer, teaching me printmaking and allowing us to have and take up space in that field. So that's my main thing. But a lot of my art explores being Black and queer in very white and heteronormative spaces, and how we can navigate those traumas that we experience while moving forward from them. And a word that I really like is Sankofa. It's a Ghanaian word that essentially means to remember your past, to not repeat it, and to instead build something better from it. And I try to live my life through that lens a lot of times. And I think by creating the art that I'm making, I can help to build that history and show our future generations what we might have been experiencing before. And I also did it was like a pop-up gallery art show thingy that lasted about a semester called Black is Punk in 2022. And with that, I got to encourage and meet with a lot of other Black artists on our campus to create a space that was safe for us to just present ourselves in whatever way we wanted. we wanted it to be like not something you would necessarily expect from us or that we're told to do, but things that we want to do for ourselves and to further our own beings. So yeah, that's a little bit of what my cultural experiences have done for my art.
Thank you, Annabelle. And yes, Black is Punk was a great exhibit. You had to be there for that. Next question. The business side of creativity can be just as demanding as the creative side. How have you learned to market yourself and manage the financial or entrepreneurial aspects of your career? Tito.
Yeah, that's such a important aspect of being an artist and especially being a freelance artist. You got to really balance, your creativity along with the business and the economics and the marketing and the financials and everything all in between, right? One of the things that I really appreciate from the visual communication program, shout out to Professor Mark Fetkowitz. He was really vital in teaching me how to create practical design and how to create things that are useful for you and useful for businesses. So I really took his lessons into account into my own personal brand. I I learned as I go, there's definitely different things that I try that didn't work or things that did work and stuck. As I mentioned earlier, I now work as a social media manager for Front Range, and that was basically I learned social media and social media management basically through my own experiences with promoting my own art, promoting myself, promoting what resonates with people and especially your target demographic. Um, I really I really think it's vital for you to kind of just look at to who you want to market to, look at what is really important for you to market and be authentic with it. I know especially the younger generation, Gen Z, potentially Gen Alpha, are really looking for authenticity with brands and especially artists. So being able to promote yourself and be true to yourself, but also be very strategic is very vital for you to be successful with, the career that you want to build. So, um, yeah, just be smart with who you want to present yourself as and keep creating. Just keep busy, really.
Thank you, Tito. Cheryl.
Being part of a very large organization, not just the 55-member Coast Guard band, but the entire Coast Guard, I did not have to do any marketing, so to speak, although that we obviously had a marketing department within the band. But I would like to talk just very briefly about advancing through the pay grade systems, or you might say ranks, but that's for officers, and all the premier bands are enlisted people. Within very short time after I enlisted and joined the band, I began to ask what more could I do. I volunteered for committees, I showed initiatives, I chaired committees eventually. I joined the Coast Guard Academy's Human Relations team. I created concerts that included the cadets at the academy. I taught flute lessons to the cadets, private lessons for free. I offered programming suggestions to the conductors. So I did that for 27 years until I became the highest ranking person in the band, except the conductor. Um, and so I did promote myself in that way and market myself as let me in there, let me be part of how this works, and let me have an influence over how we do business. And I reached that very highest position. And so that's one way I'd like to say to market yourself. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think you're bringing a unique perspective, so I appreciate how you're tying all your things in. And Karen.
So, to bounce off Cheryl's point about doing other things, I think it's very important to be a well-rounded person. However that looks like for you. At UNC, I was very involved on campus, and I think that benefited me in my professional life. Like my job at Jazz Lincoln Center, as front of house supervisor, I work in a concert hall and we put on shows, events every week from movie premieres to concerts to conferences to whatever. And that translated to my student jobs as a student ambassador and an orientation leader, putting on events on campus. And most of the stuff that I learned in college doing that stuff, I am now doing professionally in my life. Like I literally feel like it's an event day, when I'm going to work at 6 in the morning for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Goalkeepers Conference. You know what I mean? So transferable skills are very important. Um, I think that no job is a bad job. So whatever you got to do to make your money so that you can create your art, do it. Don't let anyone tell you, well, you're just a barista, you're just a server, you're just doing this, you're just doing that. Everything you do is an audition. Like that will help you meet the next person, that will take you to the next place that you got to go to. Um, Learn about taxes because as a freelancer, you get all this money and it's like, whoa, I have money, but you need to put some of that away for taxes. I personally got a tax accountant to help me with managing my freelance work because I have singing money, I have design money, I have, personal assistant money, I have dog sitting money. So it's like, what do you do with all that money? And the tax guy, who actually is based in Greeley, um, tells me, this is how we can deduct, your expenses, keep track of everything, get a separate bank account, so that you can put that money away, and find what works for you when it comes to marketing, talking to people, figuring out your workflow. Like for me, I get my inspiration at nighttime. So that's when my office hours are. You don't have to get up at 8 in the morning to do your work if that doesn't work for you. But just making sure the work gets done and it gets done well. Because that's how people will then recommend you to your next client or the next gig. Like I got a gig singing at Lincoln Center for Mozart's Requiem, not because I'm a great singer, classical singer, it's because I have good work ethic and someone recommended me and they trusted that person. And I just started singing and now I've been singing with this group for years, didn't audition, but I got it because they know that I work hard. And that's because of how I show up every day in my work. So that's my advice.
Oh, that was really good, Karen. I appreciate that. Next question. So, creative industries often rely heavily on relationships and community. How have you built and maintained your professional network, and how has your network helped open doors or create opportunities in your career? And Karen, you talked a little bit about this, so excited to hear your answer later on. Cheryl, why don't you start?
Well, actually, to bounce off of a little bit of what Karen said about setting a bar, a standard about your performance and your excellence, um, I think I did that early in my performing career, and that created performance anxiety for me. To be that consistent. When you play the piccolo, if you know that instrument, by the way, that little thing about this long that you have to wear your own earplugs for, everybody hears you. You have to be right on. And I played really well for all my career, but I had quite a bit of anxiety. So after I retired, I went back to school, and in my holistic thinking degree, my final project was about the use of hypnosis for musical performance anxiety, because I also became a licensed hypnotherapist. So I began to get requests to speak at music schools and at a flute conference, and to speak about performance anxiety. And I could relate to that and relate to all the possible solutions we all try, and then involve how hypnosis might help. And then I actually began to get clients, my own colleagues in the symphony who I used hypnosis with. Um, did I need another career? No. Did I? It was just something that melded, and I think I love to see that when people take a passion, a career, a skill, and another one, and they somehow come together and create a whole new thing. And I really have enjoyed that aspect, and I still occasionally work with people with hypnosis, but also about performance anxiety. So that's how you might call that networking in a way, but that's how I melded those together.
Ah, thank you, Cheryl. And Adele.
So, I actually got my second degree here with a master's degree in business marketing. And one of the classes that I took in that was digital marketing. And I thought it was going to be completely different from what it was. But the outcome of what it did do for me was so helpful. It helped me to build my LinkedIn in a way that was like so much better than I ever would have done by myself. And I don't think I would have done that without that class. So that's helped me to get a lot of professional like networking done. And I've even like connected with tattoo artists in a lot of different states and talking about health and safety standards and like how we can create more inclusive spaces within tattooing. Um, and I've also done like so many things on UNC's campus. Like I've done facilitation for our Catalyst Social Justice Retreat, which has helped me to meet so many people that are like-minded and ready to move towards a future that we can all live in equitably. And that's been a huge opportunity for me. I also really love doing art markets. Art markets have helped me to find lots of other artists who do similar things and who I can ask for help with if I ever need. I'm in like a ton of Instagram group chats that is just artists talking about opportunities that are happening. Or today I got a bunch of free screens for screen printing from someone just because they were like, I don't need these anymore, but I know you guys are artists and y'all probably need them. So that was an awesome opportunity. And how I got into my first tattoo shop was definitely based on just networking, and it helped me to open a new door that I didn't think was possible that soon in my reality. And from that, I've been able to move to a new shop in Greeley that has so many wonderful artists in it that I'm excited to learn from. But I wouldn't have ever gotten that if I didn't meet that first UNC alum that helped me to get in. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Annabelle. Gutted.
Can you just like repeat the question really quick? Because my brain, like,
No, yes,
listening to everyone's
totally.
answers, I'm like,
For sure. Creative industries often rely heavily on relationships and community. How have you built and maintained your professional network? And how has your network helped open doors or create opportunities for your career?
okay, thank you. So I feel like while I was at UNC, up until I graduated, I had a very strong community on campus in various areas. But then moving to New York, I had to kind of start over again. And it wasn't until after COVID, so it took like 2, 3 years after moving to really start establishing an identity in New York, because of the pandemic and going to school and all this stuff, lots of things. But once things kind of were open again, it was like 2022. I started thinking about, okay, like what do I want to do here? Because I'm here still and I'm not doing anything creative. So I started forcing myself to stay after work to go to the jazz club at work. There's a jazz club, it's called Dizzy's Jazz Club. And employees get to go for free. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like force myself to stay after work and like see who's performing and see what they're doing these days. And over time, I started hanging out and I started meeting other musicians around my age, other like grad students who are going to Juilliard, MSM, like just around the area. And I started sharing my experience with them of just like having been a jazz student at UNC, being in New York. And people are like, oh, I relate to that or whatever. And so as the more you share, the more you show up and show face, the more I started to build a community. I started making friends because I didn't have friends for a long time. So I was still like just figuring things out. And so now to this day, I still do that now, just different areas. I try to get myself to go out. Now I have friends to go out with, to go and just see performances. I think like seeing other people do what you're trying to do, um, one inspires you, but it also helps inform like, okay, I like that. That's great for them, but I don't like that, and it helps you understand like where you want to go and where you want to be and what is happening, in this day. So, now I can say I'm very immersed in the jazz community here. And the majority of them are now reaching out to me for their websites. So I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, they know me, they're recommending me to each other, and I feel more connected. So get yourself out there, make yourself uncomfortable. It'll get better.
Yes, I agree with you, Karen. Thank you. And Tito.
Yeah, I'm honestly totally aligned with what Karen, Cheryl, and Annabelle have been saying. Some of the biggest supporters that I've had in my life have come from complete strangers, which is a blessing, right? It's a blessing to be able to be present and, present yourself in different unique spaces, and you never know who you end up talking to that will lead you into a new creative space or end up purchasing a painting or hiring you for a contract or some work like that, right? I'm just like Annadelle. I do attend some of those art markets on honestly specifically just for the networking and talking to people, because those really have helped me get into different spaces and different leads with what I want to do with my art. Another good example of just maintaining a relationship, in my undergraduate studies, I had an internship at Museo de las Americas, which is also downtown Denver. I had a great relationship with the people who work there, specifically Claudia. She is the director at Museo de las Americas, and I've always had a good relationship with her. And I would say maybe 4 years down the line, she saw me at one of the art markets and saw my art, and personally invited me to take part of an exhibition that they were holding. So with that relationship building and just connecting and being very personable and again, just being authentic to who you are, they really uh, are drawn to who you are. A lot of the people like to purchase you, not necessarily the product sometimes. People like to invest in you and like to see you succeed. And if that means, allowing you to participate in an exhibition or buying a painting or hiring you to update their website, people love to see you succeed. And those are the type of people that you want to be around because you have that mindset that is also reciprocated to them, because we're all here to help each other succeed. And so if people are able to recognize that within you, you'll definitely be successful in just maintaining relationships and maintaining that group around you.
Yes, Tito, you said that perfectly well. And there's no better feeling than feeling supported and empowered to continue to do the work. Heck yeah. Representation and inclusion matter deeply in creative spaces. How do you ensure your work and presence help make the creative industry more accessible and inclusive? And Adele.
So, a big part of why I got into tattooing was because I saw that there was a big lack of Black representation in the tattoo field, and I wanted to change that. I don't know if you have watched shows like Ink Master, but a lot of Black people that are canvases on that show often are like pushed aside or they're seen as harder or challenging just because of their skin tone. And I think something that I want to change within our industry is being able to help people to see that our skin is not any more different or more difficult than anyone else's skin. It just takes a different understanding of contrast, for example. But once you have that understanding, it's not something that you should push away. It's something that you should bring in and encourage. Especially I love when I can go to an artist's page and see that they have brown skin in their portfolio because it tells me that I can trust this artist with my skin and they've worked with people that look like me before. Um, and I just want to also emphasize that I always try and continually educate myself because things change so rapidly in any field, really. And without that education constantly, you fall behind and you aren't able to accommodate the needs of the next generations. And so I really try to work hard to educate myself, especially with health and safety standards. That's like utmost importance in tattooing. But yeah.
Thank you, Annadelle. And I think I echo what you said. Representation is super crucial, especially in our creative industries. Karen.
For me, the thing that comes to mind for this question is legacy. I think that as artists, whether you're in the performing arts, the creative arts, whatever it is that you want to do, that you're doing. Um, as you grow, I think that for some people, it's very easy to forget where they came from. Um, I will never turn down somebody who reaches out to me and asks me for help. I will never I give away so much free advice, and sometimes you have to decide like, am I gonna fall victim to capitalism right now, and am I gonna charge people every time they come to me for a question, or do I want to leave a legacy behind? I will always help anybody out that I can because I have to remember that I was once in their shoes. You're always going to be more experienced than somebody, and you're always going to be less experienced than another person. And you have to decide, where do you want to be in the history books when they come back and they look at your life? A really great jazz vocalist named Sheila Jordan just passed away recently in August, and I went to her memorial service a few days ago with one of my coworkers, and I saw my professors that I had in college here, there. I saw other colleagues. I saw Tierney Sutton, who's like a really famous jazz singer, Kurt Elling. Like he literally is on Broadway right now. He opened up for everyone and then ran to his Broadway show. And it's just like so amazing to see that all these people were in the room for her. And it's because she left a legacy. The majority of the people in the room were taught by her at some point. She had a million students, a million. I had the pleasure of meeting her at UNC because she came for our jazz festival. And then I obviously connected with her again in New York City. So that's who I want to be like Sheila Jordan when I pass away. Like I want people to remember me like, oh, Karen, like she always helped me no matter what. Like I will always help people out. Buy me coffee, sure, but I think that is like what it is to be inclusive and to make sure that we are providing footsteps for everyone else, especially if you hold an identity that isn't as common in the field because that's our responsibility, unfortunately and fortunately.
Definitely, definitely, Karen. Tito.
Yeah, I think the representation aspect is something that is really particularly inspiring for me, especially as an artist. I know there's very different types of visual arts. You have your illustrators, you have your muralists, you have your graffiti artists. But me specifically, I really chose to focus down on canvas and interior spaces paintings for many reasons. And the particular reason that really comes to mind is just to be inside those spaces, such as museums and galleries and stuff like that. Um, I know that, coming from a Mexican American background, I know sometimes the resources isn't there or the priority isn't to go into museums or spaces like that. Uh, it's just because of the financial reasons, sometimes some museum tickets are, $25. And if you have a family of four, that's 100. um, would you rather get food or go into the museum, right? So I think one of my goals, particularly with my art, is to show value within the art, especially within representation of, the cultures that I come from. That's really one of my goals within my art is to, empower people who are, come from my background to show them that there's different methods to, making it in this country and making a name for yourself and just gaining money and access and learning from different spaces that aren't just your traditional schools. Um, I really want to be in the forefront of that that narrative and to show people from my background that these spaces are really valuable and really vital for you to recognize who you are and who your background are and what people have done before you.
Thank you, Tito and Cheryl.
In both of my long careers, the 30 years in the Coast Guard Band and 36 in the local symphony, I became obviously heavily involved in the behind the scenes managerial organization aspect. As I described earlier, with committees and various volunteer and initiatives in the band, becoming the enlisted leader of the band. And I focused in the band on fairness evaluations. I could have just evaluated the 9 people below me, but I also was heavily involved in the evaluations of the 21 people below them and the 19 people below them. Were they all being evaluated on the exact same standard? how we assigned collateral duties, leave and liberty requests. Want to make sure everyone was treated the same. It was such a big part of my career, and that included sitting in on live auditions, which the preliminary audition was screened in fairness. We obviously were very anxious to attract minority candidates, and I wanted to make sure that that was handled delicately but appropriately. And so I sat in on many auditions. And also in the symphony, it became a union organization, and eventually I became president of the Musicians Union. And the same thing. Are we all being treated fairly? We'd go to the auditions. Are we treating the applicants fairly? You're not supposed to look at their resume before you hear them perform, because the performance is the answer. Do they win the audition? Not where did they go to school? Thank goodness for me, because UNC is not necessarily the big conservatory. But that was a characteristic of both of my careers, that I really fought hard for the people so that everyone was heard and everyone was treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Alrighty, next question. What has been one of the most significant challenges you have faced in your creative career, and how did you overcome it? Karen.
I think just giving myself permission to do the things that I want to do, and not relying on somebody else's validation to do it. I think like in music specifically, um, you're always waiting for your somebody who you look up to be like, yeah, you have it, you can do it. And I feel like I never really received that validation in my schooling. And then when I got to New York and now I'm by myself and I'm an adult and no one's telling me what to do, I don't have homework. I had to decide for myself, do I want to identify this way and pursue it, or do I want to believe that I can't do it and then go do something else? And so I had to make a decision like, I am this and this is what I am, and I might not be where I want to be with it, but this is how I'm going to introduce myself to people. And it's the same with my freelance work. Like I didn't go to school for marketing, design. I taught myself all of those things during the pandemic. And I did have models to look after. Like there are other musicians that I've looked up to that did similar things. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And for the longest time, like did not pursue clients specifically because I didn't feel like I was skilled enough in certain things. Like I don't know how to code, for example. I can code very basic things, but I don't do it uh significantly. And so I was afraid to, like, I felt like an imposter. But now I'm realizing that you don't need anyone's permission to do anything, and there are people who will trust you to do the work, and those are the people you want to work with. So if they would rather have somebody else do it, then they weren't for you. So find people who believe in you, but the biggest person to believe in you is yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Karen. Tito.
Yeah, I guess for me, and it's still and will always be an ongoing challenge, is just to keep consistency with your craft and just creating and doing what you need to do. I know oftentimes we like to put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we think we need to know how to do everything and do everything perfectly, like immediately. But as I've learned as I've gotten older, it's really truly a marathon and not a sprint. So you can learn things as you go, you can adapt as you go. Some things will work in some years, but they won't work the next year. So you really got to learn to be adaptable and change things and grow as you get older. Specifically with me, sometimes I run through artist blocks or there's certain aspects that I don't have access to, but I, make changes for me to either get some inspiration or I change my way of thinking and do different creative things that aren't really necessarily aligned to painting. That really is a source of, inspiration to help you just keep moving on and get out of your creative block. I know sometimes access can be difficult in terms of resources and money and stuff like that, but if you honestly just really do your research, there's multiple different resources for you to kind of just go in and tap into. There's There's a space also, I think it's called Recreative down here in Denver that also has a lot of like secondhand art material that you can go in and get really cheap and really, really good quality material too. So that's something that I love to go in and see what they have there because it's there and it's accessible for you to kind of gather. But yeah, just the consistency is definitely a long game and it will always be a part of who you are as a creative. Just got to keep building. It's a muscle. Creativity is definitely a muscle, so you got to keep working on it and keep doing what you need to do to keep yourself inspired and fulfilled.
Yes, I agree. And Recreative also has our markets, so
Mm.
definitely a great resource. I agree. Cheryl.
I would say the greatest challenge I have is a few years ago on Christmas morning. I woke up completely deaf in my left ear. It was sudden, it was severe, and it was very difficult. And I have severe tinnitus, I have severe hyperacusis and distortion. And despite 2 years ago getting a cochlear implant, I'm no longer able to perform professionally. I had just bought a brand new piccolo 3 weeks before this happened. And so, as somebody who was always on stage with 100 musicians playing Sousa, Mahler, Beethoven, I now am saying, am I still a musician? What does that look like? How do I perform, or do I perform? And where and how much do I practice? Classical musicians practice hours a day. What am I doing? Um, how did I overcome it? I have not yet overcome that. It's still a work in progress. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Cheryl. And Adele, why don't you close that question up?
So I struggled with knowing the answer to this question before because I was like, I mean, of course, I experienced a lot of challenges, but I think I try and move forward from them so quickly that I try to forget about them. But my friend, when I asked her, she said it was constantly being compared to others and how that can really beat you down, especially as an artist, because it sucks to be compared to others and not have your own voice or feel like that. And it's really cliche, but I feel like the best way to overcome that is to just keep being yourself. Because at the end of the day, no, you will always be you. And no matter how hard you try to be someone else or you try to be different, you're still going to be you at the end of the day. So you just be the best you. I think that's why I make so much personal art as well, is because like yes, you might be able to relate to my experience, and I definitely want you to be able to find something similar through looking at my art, but I don't want you to be me. I don't want you to feel like you have to be me. I want you to exist in your own existence. And so I think that's been my challenge is being able to find myself and not feel like I have to compare myself to others or hear others comparing me to who else. But yeah.
No, definitely. I think sometimes we're our biggest critic, and that's can be hard too. Yeah. Alrighty, final question of the evening. Can you please share a final word of advice for UNC Bears currently seeking a career in this industry? We'll start with you, Cheryl.
I would say three things mostly. Be open to unusual opportunities. For example, I was saying, what's the Coast Guard? What's the coast? I'm from Colorado. Um, so that I was like, okay, is this an opportunity for me? Number two, ask for what you want. Can I please be an education major? I've worked hard. I can do it. Can I please borrow this piccolo even though I'm no longer a student? Ask for what you want. And then third, don't limit your definition of success. One example classically is musicians want to go out and be in an orchestra. Well, there's not that many orchestras, let me tell you. And if there are, you're also teaching part-time and you're doing many other things. I ended up in a premier military band, very fulfilling career. It's not what I pictured. It's not what a lot of musicians picture, but that became success for me. And I met my husband. I'm very happily married. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And Adele.
I would say don't underestimate yourself because I think I did that a lot, especially during my undergraduate degree. And I don't think I noticed the impact of that until I was about to graduate. And I was like, oh, suddenly I have to do everything ever right now. I have to have all the galleries right now. I have to do all of this art right now. And I underestimated myself previously and didn't allow myself to do those things that I definitely could have. And I have a tattoo on myself that's it's kind of a group tattoo, but it says rule number 4. You can't really see it very well, but it's from this list of rules in my print shop that Sister Karita Kent wrote. And rule number 4 is consider everything an experiment. I very much live by that, and I think that has helped me to find new ways to do things and to not limit myself to rules and boxes that others have created. I always try and question things and understand why things are the way they are. If it's safety, that's different, of course, in the print shop especially. But if it's not, like, let me figure out what I can do to push this thing. And I think doing that through life has helped me to fall into a lot of these beautiful opportunities and also advocating for yourself. Always be your number one supporter because if someone else isn't there to support you, you're the last one to do it. So that's something that you should never take away from yourself is the ability to speak up. Yeah.
Thank you, and Adele. Karen.
Um, Everything that Cheryl said, and to surround yourself by people who are 3 steps ahead of you. I think it's I think it's easy to get stuck in your bubble that's safe and comfortable, but I think that growth really happens when you take a step out of your comfort zone. um, Self-care and setting boundaries. I think as creatives, it's very easy to not have a line between work and not working because we're always working 24 hours a day. So really set time to sleep, um, take care of yourself, and set those boundaries because our bodies are our instrument primarily, and we have to take care of ourselves. So that's my last word of advice.
Thank you, Karen. And Tito.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest advices that I have is to just have fun with it. Everything in this life can be so harmful, and pressures can be so detrimental to what you do in your craft and your day-to-day life that it's easy to kind of place that on your own, but you don't need to have that stress for yourself. Having fun with it, being lighthearted, and really enjoying the smaller things in life, and just enjoying any moment that you have with it. Enjoy the place that you are currently as an artist. Enjoy the process. Enjoy taking the risk. Enjoy failing. Enjoy messing a painting up. Enjoy the whole process is really my biggest advice because that's really going to teach you how to be present with your art, be present with life, and be present with what you need to do currently in order to, succeed and go ahead. Success can look many different ways, and I think success can simply mean just go into the studio and working for 20 minutes. That's a success right there. So don't think of success as just this huge monumental thing, but just have fun with it and enjoy any little win that you can get.
Thank you, Tito. Thank you to all of our panelists and to all of you for joining us today. It is always an honor and a pleasure to host fellow Bears and hear about their UNC experience, their unique identities, career paths, and industry insights. Throughout the semester, well, actually, this one's the last one for fall of 2025, but we will be hosting more virtual alumni career panels next semester, and you can learn more by visiting www.unco.edu/alumni/careers. And before we end, we have our colleagues over at the Center for Career Readiness to share some insight into their resources.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevon Lakes. I use he, him pronouns. I am currently getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I work at the Career Counselor as a uh, graduate assistant. Here at the center, we are here to support you through with all things career while you are a current student on campus and up to 3 years after graduation. Our offers connect UNC Bears to quality on-campus community and national employers through the Career Tool Handshake and hosting on-campus career fairs for each semester. Students are encouraged to schedule an appointment with our career counseling team for resume, cover letter reviews, job internship, grad school search, support, mock interviews, networking tips, and more. We offer drop-in hours as well as job fairs and workshops throughout each semester. Further information on all of this can be found on the website at unco.edu/career, or you're welcome to email us at career.readiness@unco.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayvon. And if everyone can unmute themselves really quickly, we're going to do a Go Bears on a count of three. 1, 2, 3. Go
Go
Bears!
Bears!
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.